Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, Mary, who is joining us this morning live from Egypt. This is so exciting. How's it going over there, Mary?
It's going great. And as I see everyone, good morning, sipping their morning coffee, I'm just kind of like sniffing my morning Lotus, which is like
We wish we were sipping
beautiful and very
our
ethereal
lotuses.
and lovely this morning. We have a full house of Lotus here. My tour just ended, so this is kind of like my relaxing time for the next couple of days at the Lotus House and just on the west bank of Egypt, which is my home, away from home here. And yeah, it's just a lovely, beautiful morning. Yesterday there was a dust storm, so it wasn't beautiful, and we had a lot of cleanup work to do yesterday. But today it's gorgeous. Hear birds and see the.
You can hear them. I can't believe I'm hearing birds from Egypt.
You are, and if the lighting was a little bit better, I apologize for my lighting here. It's not exactly up to technical stuff, but you could actually see all the beautiful birds and the flowers in the garden and the lotus in the pond. And it's like a little nirvana back here. Yeah, an oasis in the middle of the Valley of the Kings.
Since you were already talking about the lotuses, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about them?
Well, they are the sacred flower of Egypt. And so it's been my passion and mission for the past 15 years to conserve and raise them here on the West Bank in Luxor. So basically, people who are part of my groups, usually the ones that are very metaphysically inclined and do meditation work, like to come and sit with these flowers for kind of a little hour or two to meditate and get in that good energy. Because the lotus flowers are very healing on many levels. There's so many different religious ancient practices and even modern practices use them as a sign of spiritual advancement, illumination, longevity, you name it. The lotus has something to do with raising consciousness. And so the way I explain it is that they align your fourth chakra, your heart, with your seventh chakra, your soul connection. And the ancient Egyptians kept them as a sacred flower everywhere, all over Egypt. And then during the time of the Romans, they sort of died out for various reasons. And they are now back again for various reasons. Yeah. And we're here to enjoy them. So I'm really happy.
Yeah, I will never forget.
In terms of the
I think you're hearing us on delay.
Very, very special.
What I was going to say was I will never forget. Anyway, I think you're hearing us on delay, Mary. So whenever I talk, you don't hear me until after you've already started talking. But I was going to mention that I will never forget back in 2017 when I went over there with you. And I'm blanking on his name. Your caretaker brought us over the blue lotuses to the hotel. And I swear when I smelt it for the first time, it did something. It changed something in my brain. Like I could feel something going on there. So it's it's definitely a very special flower. I also, the most common question I get asked from people, okay. Can everybody see them? They're so beautiful.
They really are blue. Like for those of you that are just listening, there's all these beautiful different colors, but I don't think I've ever seen blue like that. It's absolutely gorgeous.
So what I wanted to, the most common question that people ask about going to Egypt, regardless of when I've gone, is it safe? And I know that there's even more concerns right now, given what's going on over in Gaza. And but I know you're over there now, and you just completed one of your tours over there now with a group. What can you speak to our audience about safety of Egypt?
Well, First of all, it's very, very safe. Given that, the rest of the world is pretty much in complete chaos anyway. Once you're in Egypt, you don't even know that there's anything going on with Israel. It's like a whole different world here. And the companies that we use and the way we do Egypt, we're traveling up the Nile. So we're very far away from Israel and the border up there in northern Sinai. I mean, we don't go anywhere near there. And pretty much I never, tour groups never have gone in those areas. So it's very, if I compare it to a trip this past March that I did with the one we did 2 years ago, it's exactly the same. I mean, it's not like it's any less safe or more safe. It's like you can't tell that there's anything else going on. And, this trip was a small group of women. Okay. We were spiritually inclined, metaphysical women who wanted to come to Egypt and spend quality time in the temples, not a big chore. We just wanted to meditate and have quiet time wherever we could do that. And so we were pretty much unchaperoned in the sense that there was no guide. There was just me and knowing people that I know and traveling. We even, it's Ramadan here now. So we've had dinner in people's homes. I should say breakfast in people's homes after sunset. And it's like the idea of Egypt as a, welcoming, beautiful, safe place is always there. I mean, unless I turned on CNN, I wouldn't even know that there was anything going on with Israel or the rest of the world. This is its own spiritual frequency here. And, obviously I have to know what's going on a certain level because I'm taking people around in different, places. But we spent 2 nights in Abydos, which is like off the grid pretty much in terms of like not many big groups go there. So we had a lot of time. We had Julietta and we did private time in the temple with your group. This wasn't private time, but there was no one in the temples. So we had private time in the main frame. We just didn't go into the Assyrian like we did in November. So to me, yes, it's safe. And the people who are with me are completely happy and satisfied and felt like Egypt welcomed them with open arms. So for anyone who fears, like, I don't know what to say, like it's an inner thing, to feel safe. But if you're worried about Egypt just in general and you want to come now because 2 years from now I can't say the same thing. But right now it's completely safe. I'm living in a house by myself on the west bank of Lhasa.
And I love that this is your like you live there. You're not just visiting, you're not just renting out a place. This is your home. You live there, right? Like
yes.
and
This
we all know about your background, but can you give our listeners a little bit more information on why you're our Egyptologist? What does that mean? And tell us a little bit more about that part.
Well, I came to Egypt in the early 1990s to study Egyptology at the American University in Cairo because I was, I'm not explaining it. I came on one trip to Egypt before that in 1989 with a man named John Anthony West, who was very much interested in alternative history and alternative Egyptology. And Egyptology is just what it says. It's the study of Egypt, Egyptology. Archaeology is when the scientists go and dig in the ground and pull up artifacts and excavate temples and different things around the world. But Egyptology is specifically the study of ancient Egypt, the religion, the mythology, the history, all of that. So on that first trip, I had a conversion experience at the Sphinx. It just called me. It was like whatever that was all about. I knew I had to come back and study, and I didn't know I was going to live here, but it was that feeling of I just have to know more. And that was my quest. And so I did that and I completed the degree and studied in Egypt, worked in Egypt and Cairo. I met many, many, many archaeologists during that time, writers. And I was lucky enough to work with people who were very proficient in the work of Egyptology. And that kept me fascinated for, at least 4 or 5 years. And I should say suddenly, but I had this another aha moment when I saw the connection between ancient Egypt and Peru. And so that started another whole journey to Peru and Machu Picchu and the ancient things that are there in Peru. And then tying those things together for kind of like the next 20 years was my next quest. And so I would say for the past 30 plus years, I've gone back and forth between Egypt and the United States. I live in Florida with my husband, and he does trips to Peru, and we do Egypt, and sometimes we coincide with them, and it's just an interesting lifestyle, really. But it's not, it's not mainstream. But the idea of me having this place in Egypt was a dream that I always had, because when I studied Egyptology, I actually built this house, which was back in 1991. And then I left it to move back to the United States in 1994, and then came back again. And the house was refurbished. And interestingly enough, 15 years ago, the Blue Lotus came into my life. So there's been this long love affair with Egypt and myself, and it never dims, because it's like the light never goes out. And so there's a lot of passion for this. And again, it's not something that you can actually really explain, because if people think about Egyptology, well, you think about history and studying things, and how exciting could that be? Except when you're here and these temples are living, breathing entities, and the energies are alive. And I do, for the past 30 years, goddess work. So the ancient Egyptian goddesses, I mean, they're real. We can step into them. We just did the initiation ceremony at Karnak Temple with the goddess Sekhmet. And it was like she was vibrating to or we were vibrating to an entirely new frequency that I've never felt in that temple. And I like to go on Fridays when the temple's really empty, because everyone is usually praying on Friday afternoon here, or they're with their families. Friday's the holiday, and the big boats and things are sailing on the Nile. So Karnak Temple is relatively not crowded Friday afternoons. So that day, it was just, it was magical. I mean, you walk into a temple that usually has thousands of people, and you're queuing up, to get in line, like it might be Disney World or something. And then you walk through a quiet temple with the call to prayer wafting in the background. And you hear the birds, and you just walk through. It's like you're walking through ancient Egypt. And that, calls my soul over and over again. And I can't count how many trips I've been on, or how many times I've been walking down that corridor to that Sekhmet temple. Maybe, it must be in, like hundreds and hundreds by now. But yet each time it's like a sacred pilgrimage. It's a sacred journey. And that is the gift that Egypt gives me. And that's the gift that I like to give the people that come to Egypt with me. Because anybody can sign up to take a trip to Egypt. You can go sign up online, and you can go with different travel agencies, and they're all going to take you to the same places. There's only so many temples in Egypt. There's only, the Nile's only so long to travel on it. But the idea is, if you're entering Egypt, it's kind of having like a ATM card to open up the codes for things that are invisible to people who just either don't have the perception or the interest. But if your perception and your frequency matches it, it's like whole new dimensions open up here. And there's nothing, to me, there's nothing on this planet that can compare to that. And I've been a lot of places. And luckily, I've saved Egypt probably to the last. And except for Peru, there's probably not that many places I'll ever get to go to, because I keep coming home here. Like, this is really home.
Yeah, Egypt definitely calls. And what Mary has to offer compared to so many of the other tours out there, like we have a friend who just recently went to Egypt, and he went to Karnak, and I asked him if he got to go see Sekhmet, and he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, if you don't know, you didn't go see it. And like, that was just so sad to
Oh,
me that he went all that way and he didn't get to go into Sekhmet's temple there. And so,
mhm.
you know, Mary, with all of her experience, definitely has a bit more special of a tour to offer than just, you know, average Joe Schmo off the internet there. Can you speak to some of the other highlights of what we'll be seeing in November?
Sure. And then one of the things I do want to mention is that we don't rough it. You know, it's like we stay in the best 5-star hotels, and uh, you know, this we just stayed at the Mina House, which was exceptional. And to me, the accommodations need to be really, really, really super exceptional, because you're out doing a lot of energy work, you're out doing a lot of sightseeing, and it's a whole new experience in terms of the like the what you're taking in. The sensory level of Egypt is very intense. Sight, sound, smells, people. I mean, it's like a whole new world. And so I want people to have that comfort of coming back to their, you know, womb room where it's safe and the food is fantastic and no one ever gets sick on my tours. You know, it's like everything is top notch. And the highlights are, you know, you can be in your room at the Mina House, stand on your balcony and see the Great Pyramid of Egypt. I mean, we had breakfast every morning looking up at the Great Pyramid. So those things make it, you know, a little extra special. But the highlights are, you know, what could be more amazing than seeing the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the Sphinx. The Grand Museum, the new GEM, isn't officially open yet, but we've got the soft opening tickets to go in, and there's actually more open now than before. So you can actually go up the grand staircase, which was prohibited in November, but now you can like tool around and see a lot of the King Tut exhibit also. Not the main pieces, but the smaller pieces and the video and all of that is available at the Grand Museum. So that's something new. And then we spend a lot of time in the temples themselves, not just drive-bys. You know, a lot of tours are, it's so fast paced, and people just go into a temple for an hour, you know, run through it, take your picture. Nobody knows where they are. They can't remember what temple it is. I mean, it's just like one big mishmash of stuff. So, you know, this tour is geared so that you can energetically feel each temple. And some of them speak to you personally, some don't. People usually have their favorites that they like. Um, you know, we do Giza and Saqqara always. We this tour in November, we would probably do the Nile cruise and start out in Aswan and then visit the temples. That's the temple of Philae, the grand temple of Isis there, and then move up the Nile to Kamambo, Edfu, and Luxor. In Luxor, to me, it's like home base. So I like to, most people spend like overnight in Luxor, if that, from the boat. We'll spend at least 3 or 4 days in Luxor and going up to Abydos, which is the temple of Hathor. I do the goddess tour. So there are many, many temples that are devoted to particular goddess energy, especially Isis, Hathor, Sekhmet. We do those specifically so people can really get immersed in that energy. And a lot of people on my tours have some knowledge of ancient Egypt and the goddess pantheon, but it's not necessary. I mean, you know, we've got people who bring significant others and spouses and grandchildren. It's not like you have to have a degree in Egyptology to come on these tours. And I don't do a lot of history. So we have an Egyptian guide who will tell you all the facts you need to know. And then I kind of let people feel their way through the temples. So you're not overwhelmed with facts and figures. And, you know, it's because the Egyptian history is very daunting. There's over 5,000 years of it and 36 dynasties that we know of. So, I mean, to come to Egypt on one trip for 2 weeks and think that, you know, oh my God, You can know everything. It's you don't have to, because you have the rest of your life once you go home to watch videos and read books. And what I do is I give people a book list before and after. But it's almost like no matter what you read, it can't compare to what you're seeing when you're actually in front of those megalithic statues of, say, for instance, the Colossi of Memnon, which is, that's my backyard. My front yard is Hatshepsut's temple. The Ramesseum is next door. I mean, you really, when you're in places like Valley of the Kings, the sheer awesomeness of it just hits you. And it's like, so you can read about that and definitely watch videos, but until you're actually feeling what that is doing inside your body. And as Julietta said, like something changed in your brain, and it's a good change. No, I've never had anyone in all my 30 years of bringing people to Egypt say to me, "Oh my God, Mary, that was terrible. I never want
Well,
to do it again." Usually, they're like, kicking and screaming.
I was going to add, well, funny you said about the 5,000-year history, because, American history is like 2 semesters in school, and pretty much you got it all wrapped up. So I imagine that kids in Egypt are in school their entire lives just trying to get their history down. But the thought that came to mind was, what is the biggest takeaway? Like, when people come back from the retreat and they go about their regular lives, how do you see the effect of the retreat in their lives? What feedback have you gotten, and how people walk in the world after having experienced these wonders?
Well, the first thing they tell me is, when can we go back to Egypt? It's like they just want to come back and come back and come back. So, and my experience is that everyone's reentry, it's difficult. You're going back to the 3D world. You're going back to, where you have your problems and paying your bills, and but this idea of the frequency of Egypt that has to do with this, let's talk about ascension. Okay, what was that all about? Okay, well, everyone has different versions of what ascension and spiritual enlightenment and illumination mean for them. And so if you're on that path, then Egypt is really like ground zero for that. It's the beginning and the end of all magical work in the Western tradition. So, however, wherever you fall in line with that, Egypt is always giving something to you experientially. Now, how you work with that in your own life is pretty much up to you. And, I don't track people, to see what happened, but a lot of them are my astrology clients. So I will hear back that, they had more healing experiences, or their healing, if they're doing healing work themselves, it expanded somehow. They're working with guides that have given them more energy. It's very, very personal. But as I said, my way of looking at this is that more people want to come back with me and do it again than don't. I've never had somebody say, "I never want to come back to Egypt again." Never. So Egypt works. Whatever it does, it works. It's like all I can say is, try it. You have to experience it. You don't necessarily. I mean, if you don't go with me, it's one of those things where it's on people's bucket lists. And it's in the lifetime. In the ancient days, people had to go to Abydos. They had to make the pilgrimage to Abydos. It was part of their religion, and because that was the burial place of Osiris, the major god there. And it's like modern Egyptians or Muslim people go to Mecca. They make the pilgrimage to Mecca once in their lifetime. So I say, you might as well, if you can do it, go to Egypt once in your lifetime, just to experience all of that. And again, I mean, for people who are not metaphysical or not spiritual, it's an astounding place. I mean, it's full of adventure. It's got amazing food, amazing people, amazing sights. I mean, even if you do nothing but get in a hot air balloon and ride over the Nile, or do the Nile cruise, or take your picture on a camel in front of the pyramids, it's like there's something for everyone. It really has that appeal that's lasted since Napoleon and the first Europeans came in the 1700s. So to me, I'm on a track with Egypt. I'm on the spiritual ascension, illumination. Let's get this show on the road track. And Egypt, like I said, is the big battery that you plug into. And so if anybody wants to, get on that train with me, hey, yeah, climb aboard. But again, it's a very individual experience. I mean, I've had some people who come, it's just for the history and the learning experiences. It's like they've lived on the History Channel for, 10 or 12 years, and they just want to come and see everything. Or other people who are into it from the ancient aliens perspective. It's like they've seen all the what if stuff, and they want to come and experience it and measure the chambers and look for the holes and the tunnels. I mean, there's so many different ways to be in Egypt and enjoy Egypt.
I do have to say, if Egypt
you
calls you at all, it's calling you for a reason, and you need to go over there and experience it. And no matter how much we talk about it, what we say, all the pictures that we show, I have so many really incredible stories that I can share with people if they're interested. But until you actually are there in the energy, the frequency of Egypt, you can't even imagine it. And if Egypt is calling you, it's calling you, and you need to go. And just in my experience of speaking with people who've gone over there with other tour guides, Mary is the one. I'm always like, I watch some of the people that do the big expensive tours, that have their TV shows out there, and I'm like, I don't understand why Mary is not there. As famous as they are, because what she brings is an extra layer of magic to visiting Egypt. So if you're thinking about it at all, I do want to invite you to reach out to myself, Graciela, and when Mary gets back from Egypt, we can connect you with her as well to speak. But this is going to be truly a magical retreat this November. And so if you're thinking about it at all, get in touch with us so you can reserve your spot and join us and know what I'm talking about when I'm saying, like, you can't even put words to it. It's over the top.
So y'all better make sure your passports are in order now.
Yes, that's important. You do need to have a passport that's valid 6 months after your departure. So people, that, and again, that's one of there's a whole lot of information that once you're interested in, and we do an informational, video like this or discussion, all the technical questions get answered, but you don't need shots or anything else. The visa you can get in Egypt when you land. You just need to have your passport valid for 6 months after your travel dates. And you can Google me, Mary Lomando, Lomando, and my trips and my website comes right up. So you can see a lot of what I'm doing, what I've done in the past. I try to gear some of the trips to astrological occurrences because I'm also an astrologer. I think Julietta went on a trip where we were doing it for the lunar eclipse one year, and we had private time. So it depends on, again, the timing of the astrology and what temples and sometimes what order I will do them in. But basically, the itinerary is not unusual in a sense. Like, we're not over the top taking you to places that might be difficult or risky, or a lot of people that they're not in the best physical shape. Egypt is easy, okay, because there's no real climbing, there's no altitude, there's nothing that you really have to worry about as long as you can walk. And I've even seen people who have been in wheelchairs and have certain areas that they can go into. Egypt isn't 100% wheelchair proficient, but if that's an issue for some people and you still want to go, then that it's not prohibitive either. You just have to let us know in advance that that's something that you need help with. But basically, there's no physical endurance test that you have to pass to go to Egypt. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here. It's, and the
exciting.
you know, no health rules that you have to really follow it, because we eat in really clean and good places, except don't drink the water. You know, that's the main rule, don't drink the water. But that's everywhere now, even in South Florida.
So I know Graciela needs to leave us. She's got kids to take to school or something. But you know, this is just the first of we'll be doing, you know, other lives, you know, leading up to this trip, so that people can tune in and ask their questions. And when Mary gets back to Florida too, I think we're going to try and do a couple live events, so that you can actually meet her in person and ask her questions face to face. But I really want to, I can't say it enough. Like, if Egypt is calling you in any way, shape, or form, like, we're the answer right here. Like, we're how you're going to get there. So please reach out and ask questions, so so we can make this happen for you. And I think that's about it for today. But I just want to give a great thank you to Mary for carving out some time while she's over there to visit us, so we can feel the energy of Egypt coming through the ethers. And I wore my Galabea today just to get in the Egyptian mood. And
Yes, I see that. I should have some Egyptian music playing in the background for you. Get up and dance. So take a beautiful whiff of these before you leave, Graciela.
It's amazing.
They are just sending so
look
much
who's watching
love.
us this
So much
morning.
love.
My dad is on.
Hi, Dad.
We're gonna see if we get him to join us in Egypt this year.
I
So
love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see you in person, Mary. Safe travels, and yeah, super, super excited.
all right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you soon.